Welcome to Gene's Reviews, where I basically do whatever the hell I want. Hello everybody, how are y'all doing? Today, we're going to go to one of my favorite subjects. We're going to check out the alternate universe theory. Are we living in a simulation? Or are we in an alternate universe, like Mandela effect, that type of thing? Let's check this out and see.
Starting off this countdown, we have SpongeBob. Who here is a fan of the sponge that lives in a pineapple under
I
the
never
sea?
got into it, but I think I'm too old for that.
So if you answered yes, then have you seen the 2004 SpongeBob movie? The one where the two goofy goobers, SpongeBob and Patrick, set out to return King Neptune's crown to save Mr. Krabs, and then Plankton tries to take over and... yeah. Well, if you've seen this, then in one of the final scenes, there's this whole musical number where SpongeBob rocks out to Goofy Goober. At one point, he bursts into a wizard outfit in white boots while rocking on a guitar. Well, take a look at this image. Do you remember SpongeBob playing on a white electric guitar or a weird peanut one? Let me know. I remember him holding a white electric guitar.
I would think
but
white,
apparently that's
but I don't
not
know.
right, and he always had a peanut guitar. No, just no, that's not right. We fully switched universes because SpongeBob never had that guitar, I swear. Moving on to number 9, we have Cheez-Its. But apparently, that tasty cheese cracker is not called Cheez-Its, it's Cheez-It. Either I've been saying it wrong my entire life, or this is proof that we live in a parallel universe. Like, do you remember it being Cheez-It or Cheez-It?
I remember with a
honestly,
Z.
Cheez-It doesn't make sense
I remember it with
needs
a
to be
Z.
plural, because there's more than just one cracker in the box. Now I'm just getting mad here, but someone's out there playing with us, I swear. Moving on at number 8, we have these circle clouds. Ever wondered what life is like in another universe? Well, they might just have circular clouds. Yeah, you heard me. Look at this real image.
Okay, that's
of a
freaky,
circular cloud. Honestly,
but I think it's just a weather phenomenon.
The end is near.
That's what I
it's
think.
Cool, but also it's not right. Like, that's a glitch in the Matrix or something. Mother Nature is glitching, or maybe that's what normal clouds look like in a parallel universe.
Maybe.
Who knows at this point?
I think it's
In
just
our
a weather
seventh spot,
phenomenon,
we have
though.
The twins. Except the guys in this photo aren't twins. They're
Oh,
not
yeah,
even
I've seen
related.
this.
Yet
This
they
is
somehow
freaky.
dressed up in identical outfits and appeared at the same place, both reading newspapers. How creepy is that? Like, they even have the same haircut and hairline. Like, what is going on? I mean, the sweater is identical, same brand and logo and color. What are the odds?
One of them
The
has a
difference is that the
doppelganger.
man on the left is wearing black socks and the man on the right is wearing white socks. One of them is from a parallel universe for sure. It's the same dude, just our universe
that's
is
something
glitching
there.
or merging with other universes or something like that. Coming in at number 6, we have the green KFC. So we all know that the KFC colors are red and white.
Yeah.
Right? Well, not at this KFC location. Since when does KFC have a green building?
I
Hell
think
no.
the
That makes me
franchise
uncomfortable.
owner can do
Even
whatever he
Colonel
wants
Sanders is
as far
wearing
as
a green
the
apron
color of the
thing
building.
instead of a red one. That's not normal. That KFC is in another universe, I swear. We're now at our 5th.
Okay, my dad ran a Kentucky Fried Chicken store back in like the 70s, late 60s, early 70s, and he was franchise owner of it, and he painted the building. So they were allowed to do that back then. I think they're just allowed to paint the building however they want if they're the franchise owner of the building, but I'm not sure. I know my dad did it.
And halfway mark with the photo glitch. Okay, someone needs to explain this photo to me. It's not edited at all. The girl just somehow appeared to be gray in the photo. Like, it looks fake, am I right? How is that possible? Unless her goal was to be a gray Santa. This one just hurts my
And it
feelings.
has to be
if
digital,
anyone
so
can
I don't know.
genuinely explain this photo, then let me know in the comments below. Like, how did she appear colorless when everyone else in the photo is in color? I feel like I'm tripping out. Moving on at number 4, we have C-3PO. Who here is a fan of Star Wars? Hit that thumbs up button if you
I never
are.
got into
Well,
it.
A lot of diehard
Thought it was okay,
fans
but
were shook when they found out that C-3PO does not have an entirely gold body. That's right. Apparently, he's always had one silver leg. Okay, then explain this to me. How come when I was little, I had a C-3PO figurine that had 2 gold legs, okay?
I would think it would be completely gold.
What do
I don't
you
know.
remember, though? Apparently, a ton of fans
Lots of stuff with Star Wars.
C-3PO being entirely
There's the whole
gold.
Luke, I am your
So,
father
is
thing,
our
too. He
memory
never said
failing
Luke.
us, or are we universe jumping? In our third spot, we have the Berenstain Bears. Okay, disclaimer. Buckle your seatbelts because I'm about to get
I
heated
never
and
even
passionate.
heard of them until
So,
this
do you
Mandela effect
remember
thing.
the classic kids book being the Berenstain Bears or the Berenstain Bears?
Steen seems
I
more
remember it
logical.
being the Berenstain Bears, spelled S-T-E-I-N.
Seems more logical.
No, I've been living a life of lies and deceit because apparently it's always been the Berenstain Bears. Stain, S-T-A-I-N. What? But I'm not the only one. Thousands of others remember it being the Berenstain Bears. So, theory goes that there are parallel universes out there. In this case, we have the Steen universe and the Stain universe.
Steen
We
seems a
lived in the
lot
Steen
more
universe
logical.
during the 90s when the
Why would
books
you call
were
it
out.
Stain?
But then later on, we somehow shifted into the Stain universe. Somehow, the universe ended up overlapping with ours, which is why we remember the Steen books, because they were real, but just in another universe. It's just driving me insane. Like, it was the Berenstain Bears. Okay, why would it be Stain? I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Okay, like if you agree. Like if you agree. And at number 2, we have the Looney Tunes. Here's another one that will drive you mad. Or should I say, drive you loony. Sorry, I'll stop with the dad jokes. But do you remember the classic cartoon being Looney Tunes? T-O-O-N-S? Or
I
Looney
remember
Tunes,
2 O's in
T-U-N-E-S.
tunes.
I remember it being tunes, spelled with 2 O's. And that makes sense because it's a cartoon.
And loony is spelled
But
with
no,
2 O's.
apparently it's tunes, like a music tune, which makes no sense again.
No, it doesn't.
Hello, it's a cartoon, not a music tune. I just want to go back to the Toons universe, like the T-O-O-N-S universe, because everything just
I
makes
really do
more
think we're
sense
living
there.
in a parallel
Okay?
universe. I really
Probably
do.
don't have COVID there. Just saying. And in our number 1 spot today, we have the Mona Lisa. Okay, this one really tripped me out. But do you remember the Mona Lisa having a little smirk on her face?
A little one.
Or a
Just a
serious
little one.
face? I remember her always having a slight smirk. Not a huge smile, but just a little something, something, you know? But in high school, I was taught that she was serious and she didn't smile in the portrait. But get this. In a movie from 1931, it shows the Mona Lisa smiling. This movie is called The Theft of the Mona Lisa. Here's a clip from it.
Yeah, she's got a little bit of a sly smile
Now,
there.
of course, they didn't use the real Mona Lisa for the film, but wouldn't you think that they would get an exact replica for the film?
You'd think so.
Meaning that she had a smile. Because why all of a sudden would they use a Mona Lisa where she's smiling? Unless back in the day, she was smiling in the portrait, and then somehow we're now in a universe where in the painting, she didn't smile. Okay? But that's not all. In a 1962 Looney Tunes episode
I like
titled
her.
Louvre Come Back to Me, we can also again see the Mona Lisa smiling.
I can tell you chaps one thing. It's not always easy to hold this smile.
In the clip, she literally says, I can tell you one thing. It's not always easy to hold a smile. Bam! It's just proof that at one point, the Mona Lisa did have a smile. You see how worked up I get over this? Something's going on here. We're in a parallel universe. It's tripping me out.
Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have the infinite versions of our universe. Okay, let's start off at the beginning. Well, the beginning of what is our observable universe, which was the Big Bang that happened 13.8 billion years ago. This is when our observable universe was born, which is finite, but the universe itself, which our universe is a small part of, is infinite and could have been born infinite. Since we can put a timeline on when our universe came into existence, which is that 13.8 billion years we just talked about, we can place a timeline on the things in our own universe. Everything in our universe is finite, but beyond our universe and the stars and galaxies and matter and all of that sciencey stuff is the universe, which would lead us to believe that there are many more infinite universes that are just like our own, but that are beyond our knowledge because of the fact that the speed of light, as well as the beginning of ours, the Big Bang, is finite. If there is an infinite amount of universe out there, then it only seems reasonable to believe that the same sort of creation of our finite universe happened an infinite amount of times. In our number 9
that
spot
kind of
today,
makes
we
sense.
have
I kind of understand
infinite
that.
universes. Piggybacking off of that last point, we have the fact that there just might be even more universes. Like, not just more of our kind of universe, but more of the universe. The Big Bang started off our universe, but it was not the beginning of everything. The Big Bang, which we all know happened when? 13.8 billion years ago, was the first time the universe could be described as hot, dense, and full of matter and antimatter and radiation and all of that. But there was stuff going on before that happened. Prior to the Big Bang, there was a period of cosmic inflation. This inflation leads to the growing of space-time, and this means that if that period occurred for an infinite amount of time, there could be an infinite amount of universes that are all finite, and one of these universes happens to contain ours. Does that make sense? This video really is all a person needs to feel exceptionally small and very insignificant.
Yeah, I'm not a
scientist. In our number 8 spot today, we have daughter universes. Before I dive into this one, guys, please don't forget to hit the thumbs up button if you're enjoying the video so far. Let's try and make this the universe where this video has the most likes. Let's do it. This one is just a theory about if there are multiple parallel universes that exist and what they contain. This is where the theory of daughter universes comes into play. It is possible that multiple universes may follow the theory of quantum mechanics, which is how subatomic particles behave. Following the laws of probability, the daughter universes happen when you are faced with a decision. In our reality, you make your decision and it plays out one way, but in the daughter universes, they would each involve you making every other decision you could have made in that moment, which would then lead to whatever outcome that decision would have ended up leading to. So like butterfly effect. This just means that there may be a universe for the opposite of every decision you've ever made in your life, and one for every decision anyone has ever made. How likely is this? I'm not sure, but if we ever find a way to jump to other universes, there goes the days of regret. In our number 7 spot today, we have bubble universes.
Might even be worse.
For this one, we need to imagine our universe as a bubble, which it kind of is. The swelling bubble of our universe is just one bubble among many. Well, as we all now know, it is possibly just one among an infinite amount, all of which are swelling and expanding. All these bubbles make up the multiverse. This itself is of course just a theory that was made in an attempt to understand the origins and beginnings of our universe, but now it is being researched further. Physicists have begun studies on how and when universes might collide and bubble up together. I do understand that this is not concrete proof or evidence, but we wouldn't be researching it if it wasn't a possibility. This
so when they kind of intersect,
in the direction
that's
where we
when you get
see some
the
real
Looney
proof,
Tunes
or at the very
stuff and all
least,
that.
give us
Maybe.
a better understanding into the theories of how multiple universes exist and how they could potentially interact with one another. In our number 6 spot today, we have the lack of evidence. This evidence is more so about the lack of evidence there is to say that the multiverse doesn't exist. Many scientists find the idea of the multiverse alarming or even unscientific because of the fact that there's no way for us to test for it. There is no way to make predictions that fall in line with data, and no way to really verify its existence, whether it's one parallel universe or an infinite amount. But there isn't really any evidence or data to support the theory that we are the only universe that exists.
Right.
If our universe was created basically out of happenstance, what could stop another universe from being created at the same time?
I think there's infinite
or
ones.
Out of a similar happenstance?
I don't think there's just one parallel one. I think there's a lot of them.
The multiverse itself is relatively quite young and new, so it is possible that we will find the evidence to persuade most of us to one side or another, but as of right now, anything is possible. And maybe in another parallel universe, we already know
like I've said before, the scientists don't know everything.
Maybe there's another me
and they never will
make this video being like, oh, you don't know anything. In our number 5 spot today, we have the cold spot. The cold spot was first discovered in 2004, and it is basically just what it sounds like. It's an area in the universe that is slightly colder than that surrounding it. And when I say slightly, I really do mean very slightly. But when I call it an area, I'm talking about a huge one, as it is around 1.8 billion light years across. It was first believed that this area may be colder due to a lack of galaxies, but a newer study suggested that that is not possible, which led researchers down a different path in search of new theories as to why the cold spot exists. One of the most exciting is the theory that this may have occurred due to a collision between our universe and another bubble universe. A bubble universe is what we just spoke about in the last part, and they make up the multiverse, which would be the uncountable realms that all sit side by side, but that are in higher dimensions than our senses are able to interpret. This, of course, is a theory, and it will require a lot of time and research before we can say for certain, but it truly is kind of crazy to think that a huge, colder area of the universe could be due to a bump-in with another universe entirely. In our number 4 spot today, we have the CMB. After the Big Bang, it took around 300,000 years for things to cool down enough in order to allow atoms to form and to allow light to travel freely. This was known as the recombination, and during this time, that is when the cosmic microwave background began. The CMB is electromagnetic radiation that fills all of space, and while the space in between stars and planets and such may seem to be completely dark, the CMB is there and can sometimes, through sensitive enough technology, be seen as a kind of glow. So, how does this play into what we're talking about today? Well, scientists noticed a sort of bruise on the CMB during research, which left them wondering why. This is what led to this next parallel universe theory. If our universes are all like bubbles and one bumps into the other, it's possible that they may merge, even just for a second. This could cause some parts of one universe to spill into the other before eventually parting ways again, but this collision surely would leave some sort of a mark. And that mark just may be the bruise we saw in the CMB. In our number 3 spot today, we have the CMB Part 2. So you know what the CMB is now, and there's another thing we are looking for in it that might give us a sign of the multiverse. We thought we found evidence of this back in 2014, but it may have been a false detection, but we continue to look. Gravitational waves, which are ripples in space and time, are what we are looking for right now. The waves would have been left over from the Big Bang, and they could be putting tiny curls into the CMB. If found, this would prove the theory of cosmic inflation, which we discussed close to the beginning of this video in number 9, which would then lead us to the creation of multiple universes. It's all linked together in the most insane ways, but the universe is very cool and very complex.
It almost looks like a little tornado running through or something.
So, thinking about what we just talked about with the bruise and the CMB, and if our bubble universes really did collide with some other universe, and they had a moment where they may have been interconnected in some way, then this would explain the Mandela effect.
Yes.
If you don't know, the Mandela effect began being widely recognized when people began to swear that they could remember Nelson Mandela passing away in the 1980s.
And I don't remember that.
This is, of course, weird since he
that.
actually passed away in 2013. This time discrepancy had people obviously confused, and it has happened with many other things such as the Berenstain Bears, the movie Kazam, and honestly a whole bunch of things. There are many theories as to why the Mandela effect happens, and one of them certainly is the belief in multiple universes and some sort of crossover happening between the two. This, coupled with the possibility of colliding universes, is hard to comprehend, but it does kind of make sense. In our number 1 spot today, we have the strange particle. This might be the most concrete evidence, but we still don't really know what it means. This evidence came to us originally in 2016, but it took a few years for it to be interpreted in the way that might suggest the potential of a parallel universe. During experiments and research in the Antarctic, researchers captured what seemed to be the signal of a high-energy particle. This would be all well and fine, except for the fact that instead of coming down from above, this particle seemed to be exploding out of the ground. Despite multiple attempts to explain why the signal was appearing this way, scientists were left with not a lot of options, and one of those has to do with the fact that this strange particle just may be proof of another parallel universe that is both exceptionally similar, but also the complete opposite of our own. In order to explain this particle, there would need to be the existence of another universe that was created during the same Big Bang that created our own and exists in parallel with ours. But this universe would have to be a mirror of our own, where left is right and right is left and positive is negative and time runs backwards. It's both the most simple and most complex idea that all started with one tiny, strange particle.
Starting us off number 10 are dreams. I'm pretty sure everyone in life has wondered what their dreams meant. Anytime I dream of anything traumatic, I always Google it and I'm like, oh my god, I'm about to start a new chapter of my life, or one's about to end, what do I do? Either way, dream travel is a theory that our dreams show glimpses of alternate universes or realities that are beyond ours. In a multiverse where there are endless versions of you and your life, and they've all branched off and have lived different lives, if you're having a really vivid dream to the point it's so lifelike you feel like you're really there, it's possible we're tapping into the experiences and memories of an alternate us. Say if you keep dreaming about living in a different country, or having a different job, or eating something so detailed you can smell it and taste it, it's been theorized it's because you've probably already experienced those things in another timeline, and our sleeping mind somehow lets us access it. Physicists have theorized since our conscious minds' barriers are down during sleep, it allows our subconscious mind to go into the windows between realities and contact the consciousness of our other selves. This suggests that maybe our subconscious mind operates in our own reality and the others all at the same time. Another theory is that despite only seeing one course of events for each action or decision we make, we still imagine what would have happened if we did or chose differently. So based on that, our dreams could be showing us how all those other decisions would have played out if our other selves made them. That was a lot to digest, I know, and there's a lot more to come. Coming in at number 9 is missing time. So I feel like a lot of people will be able to identify with this feeling or experience, and yet not know it could very well be evidence of an alternate reality. So this is a story of John Carlson. In the late 70s, John was in high school and his house was about a 1.5-mile walk from his school. He walked there and back every day, and it was a pretty straightforward route that he knew very well. One day he was walking home when he saw a bunch of guys that usually bullied him, and he took a different route. Again, even this other route he knew very well. He'd also taken it before, so it wasn't anything new. But on the walk, things just seemed off. Despite school just ending, it was eerily quiet, and he felt like things just weren't real. As he was approaching an intersection, he saw the stores he usually saw there, but the silence persisted. He realized that even though he was walking towards the intersection, the stores and landmarks kept getting further and further away from him. Like a mirage, he didn't understand and started feeling anxious and disoriented, and then blank. A complete loss of memory, and when he awakened, he was on a different street in a different part of town, quite a while away from the intersection he was at before. And he had no idea how he got there, but within a few minutes, his mum pulled up and asked him if he was alright. Normally his parents never looked for him as long as he came home before dinner, but his mum somehow just knew exactly where he was. When he asked her why she went to look for him, she said she was just doing chores at home when a voice in her head said, "Get John, he needs you." And a lot of people have had the same missing piece of time experience, so they've theorized that perhaps these blips are us crossing into another universe and taking your alternate selves' place and vice versa, so when you swap back, you end up somewhere else and not knowing how you got there. At number 8 we have the Large Hadron Collider, LHC for short. CERN, which is the European Organization for Nuclear Research, restarted their newly upgraded LHC in order to find out more about dark matter and look for tiny black holes that could be gateways to alternate universes. This LHC is the world's most powerful particle accelerator, and the point of it is to try and recreate the conditions present during the Big Bang to see what kind of matter was produced. Its other project is finding those tiny black holes. A paper published by scientists at the University of Waterloo proposed a way to prove black holes connect our universe with other universes, so CERN intends on testing and proving their hypothesis.
I think it's something that we should just leave alone.
It's likely that they do. It'll be the first experiment that proves the existence of alternate realities ever. Hopefully they also find out how to transition from this reality to that one. Thanks. Filling our number 7 slot is the Bermuda Triangle. I've been interested in the Bermuda Triangle ever since I found out people and airplanes and ships go missing in the area. There's just too much intrigue to not be interested. It's mysterious, things disappear, time and space becomes distorted. It's like a world of its own. The first article ever written about the place dubbed it the Sea of the Devil, which is just not the way you want to debut into the world of print. It's really not. Over the past century, there have been hundreds and hundreds of large air and sea vessels that have just disappeared. Other cases involve perfectly intact and working seacraft completely abandoned by their crew and the crew never being found. Eyewitnesses who have been and survived recall compasses going crazy when they entered the area, unusual clouds, and entering a rotating substance and exiting through a luminescent curtain of some kind. I don't know. Scientists like Einstein and Michio Kaku came up with theories about the refraction of time. Kaku had a theory about the river of time, saying it can lead to the formation of whirlpools of time in which it's possible to enter into different time spaces and that the river can fork into many directions. And obviously those different time spaces have alternate realities. The founder of the spiritual practice Falun Dafa said the triangle is definitely a gateway to another reality, but it's just very unpredictable. If the door happens to be open, then a ship could slip in for a moment and come back out by accident, but that second could be decades in our world because time is different in every dimension. What do you guys think? Now at number 6 is the desert blip. Back in 1972, 4 girls were coming back from a Utah rodeo and they took the Utah Highway 56. Since their landlady had a really strict 12 AM curfew and it was already 10:30, the girls decided to take a shortcut off the highway which went towards Gadianton Canyon. They were driving on black asphalt for a while, but somewhere along the way it transformed into cracked concrete. The girls encountered a dead end and went back the way they came, but it took them a few minutes to realize their surroundings had completely changed. They went from driving in the desert to driving by lush fields of wheat near a large lake. At this point the girls had no idea where they were, and in the distance they saw light coming from a building. So they went towards it, and when they got closer they saw the neon sign spell out a message which they couldn't read. The letters or symbols were twisted lines and curves, a language none of the girls had ever seen before. Then all of a sudden extremely tall men started pouring out of the building and started waving their arms and pointing at the girls and then coming towards them. They looked human but they weren't, and the girls took off screaming and crying. 30 seconds later they realized the people were following them in egg-shaped vehicles that had 1 headlight, 2 front wheels, and 1 rear. They drove back into the canyon and soon lost the eggs, but wow, I really wonder where the hell they ended up. I'm convinced it was another universe. The sign, I can just imagine the sign being one of those fonts on
that's
web that
weird
no
that it would be like
it's probably one of those.
Different
Coming
language.
in at number 5 are psychopaths. Juicy, I know. So way back during the eugenics movement, scientists believed mankind could be improved by breeding out the evil and bad ones amongst us. It led to sterilizing prisoners and mental patients by the early 20th century. But Linda Campbell puts forth a theory that psychopaths are spiritually dead, demonized human predators that disguise the fact their mind is demonically filled. Their lack of empathy allows them to ignore reality and impose false realities on others made up of lies. The lack of empathy makes them blind to humanity, and so humans to them can be easily sacrificed, abused, tormented, you name it. It can happen to them. They possess an unlimited amount of demonic energy and get a thrill out of things we would categorize as screwed up.
What does this have to do with the parallel universe?
People actually exist in a demonically twisted upside down reality where everything they're doing and feeling makes complete sense to them in their reality. Our reality and theirs overlap, and their reality is a devilish anti-world within ours. And how this overlap happened, I have no idea. But it's not the first time blips or overlaps have popped up within this topic.
No, that's just something in their mind. That's nothing to do with it.
It was so hard finding links about this story. It's like the universe just didn't want me to share it and know more, but I will. But anyway, many years ago, a woman and her friends went camping near a forest. They were having a good time, toasting marshmallows, the whole shebang, when they heard some music come from a stone cabin. First of all, I don't know why they weren't suspicious of a random stone cabin in the forest to begin with, for sure. Moving on, when they went to the cabin, they apparently saw a bunch of people wearing 17th century clothing just dancing inside. The woman was almost drawn to it and she tried to enter it, but before she entered all the way, her friend pulled her away and half her body immediately became paralyzed. Yes, the half that entered the cabin. Like out of nowhere, nothing happened, she just became paralyzed. Many believe the woman actually stepped into a dimensional gateway to an alternate reality, but when she was pulled away, she felt a shift that completely threw off her nervous system. I mean, obviously, since our systems don't experience alternate realities frequently, and thus she became paralyzed. Fill Falling on number 3
I wonder if she stayed that way.
Doppelgangers. It's a tricky subject. How is it possible for someone unrelated to us at all to look exactly like us? Looks are genetic. We look the way we do because of our ancestors. I don't need to explain that. So how can anyone else look exactly like us? From a scientific and biological standpoint, it just doesn't make sense. They're meant to be us in an alternate reality, living their lives, but somehow in the configuration of endless possibilities of realities and universes, a glitch occurred and two of the same person ended up in the same reality when technically they shouldn't have been. They're not our clones, they still carry out their own lives like they would have in the alternate reality, except they're here and they look exactly like us. And now at number 2 is Laxaria. Back in 1851, a man called Jofar Vorin was found in a German village speaking a bit of broken, weird German. When locals in the area found him, he said he spoke the languages Ibranian and Laxarian, and that he was from Laxaria, from an area called Sacria, which was separated from Europe by an ocean. He said his world had 5 great compartments, aka continents, called Sacria, Asta, Afla, Eupla, and Osla, which obviously stunned everyone because none of those things exist. He went on to say he was Christian, but that it was also called Aspasian in Laxaria. You may be wondering why he was in Germany to begin with. He could have just easily stayed in Laxaria. He was trying to find his long lost brother, but then suffered a shipwreck on his way and wound up in Germany. Despite looking at many maps, he couldn't trace his route from any shore or find his way back. People believe he's from an alternate universe and somehow ended up in ours.
I think he did.
Who knows, maybe he went through his world's version of the Bermuda Triangle, and that's how he got here. And finally, at number 1 are the Green Children of Woolpit. Now in the 12th century, a brother and sister were found near a wolf pit in the village of Woolpit, Suffolk. Yes, they got the name of the village from the wolf pits in the village. Now they looked like normal human kids, except for the fact that their skin was heavily tinged with green. They spoke an unknown language that none of the locals had heard of, would only eat raw beans, and their clothing was just very bizarre. After a while, they learned how to eat normal food and lost their green hue, but the boy soon died. The girl, however, learned how to speak English, and she explained how her brother and her had come from a place called St. Martin's Land, which was a subterranean world that only housed green people. She said the sun never shone there and it was twilight all the time. When asked how they got to Woolpit, she said she had no idea. She recalled herding her dad's cattle with her brother and then hearing a loud noise, and then they suddenly just end up near the wolf pit. The girl grew up and got married and led her life, but many people theorize the kids came from an alternate reality but just adapted to ours. For me personally, since it was the 12th century and travel was hard for locals of small villages, maybe the kids were from the Middle East or Asia, which could explain why the locals didn't recognize their language or clothing, but that still doesn't explain how they got there or the greenness of their skin, so maybe I should just stop talking.
Wow. Man, that's some freaky stuff. Let me know in the comments down below what you thought of that. Yeah, I find that stuff really fascinating, but I only understand probably 30-40% of it, to be completely honest with you, if that. But now it's time for a joke. Did you know that nearly 1/2 of all Americans are torsos? Huh? Thank you, everybody. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, hashtag Mean Gene, all that fun stuff. And if you like this video, tell all your friends, leave a comment down below. And if you didn't like it, then just shut up. And I will see you next time.